Hello everyone, nubkeks here. Welcome back to Nub Raids, and today we're back in the tier list here in Photoshop. Uh, this is actually the fourth legendary tier list that we've done. We've done one for Force Affinity, Magic Affinity, Spirit Affinity, but today we are looking at the strongest affinity of all, Void Affinity. And yeah, remember, of course, as well, that the rankings in this tier list are going to change based off of your feedback as well. We're going to do an ultimate tier list after this where we put everything, every single legendary in the game, including the new ones from the new patch that weren't in the previous ones. We're going to put them all into one big tier list. I'll make this like twice as wide. And we'll put them all in and have the ultimate tier list. But yeah, champions will move up and down based off of your feedback. Definitely with Voids, what I'm probably going to do, I think we honestly probably need an extra tier for when we add in Void champions. I think that's the easiest way to do it, is that for this video, I'm just going to split them like D to S based off of how good they are just within Void legendaries themselves. But I honestly think for the most part, when we add in all of the affinities, we should probably have like an S plus tier, which will be for the current S tier Void. Basically, all the Void champions be promoted up a rank, I think, broadly speaking, with maybe some exceptions. And then there's champions like, spoiler, Duchess Lilitu, for example, would be a great example of a champion that's going to move up to the S plus tier as well from the other affinities. So, you know, we can move stuff around, but I think that's probably going to make the most sense. And yeah, also help me doing this. Anyway, let's dive in, guys. So first of all, we've got a really strong faction now, a really, really strong faction. We have the Banner Lords. We've got Baron, Raglan, Karis, Marishka, and even Quintus the Triumphant. Wow. What? It's stacked. It's stacked. Let's put Baron in. First of all, Baron's going straight in the S tier as just this massive nuke. I think Baron is still worth putting in the S tier. His A1 is really, really good as well. I think he's a great champion. Let's do the other obvious ones. Marishka and Taras are both going in the S tier as well. Both champions really well known at this point for being completely and blatantly overpowered. Her as a support champion, him as a tanky damage dealer. They're just on another level, let's be honest. Raglan, I'm going to put Raglan all the way down the B tier. Now, I think Raglan is quite power crept. She's quite outdated. She has a really, really strong single target revive. But what she doesn't have is, yeah, her cleanse isn't that good. And it's been quite power crept. It's quite outdated. Scaling off of her attack, it's very awkward. So this is a champion that could definitely do with an update, and she'd probably jump up into A tier. But I think having such a strong revive makes her a B tier champion pretty much at worst, I think, to be fair. And then finally, Quintus. I am not sure exactly how good Quintus is going to be, but reading his kit, he does look like another S tier champion. And that passive in particular just seems so insanely strong. And judging from basically all of the other sort of guaranteed Void champions you get from like your missions and things like that, they've all pretty much been extremely strong. So I'm sort of expecting the same for Quintus. I'm going to put him in S tier for now. But yeah, I obviously don't have him, so I'm not 100% sure. Next up, we have Bellinor, Arbiter, Supreme Alhain, and Ethos as well. Here we go. So not a bad bunch here from the High Elves. Let's start with Arbiter. Classic El Clasico. I think Arbiter is still an S tier champion overall. You could build her tanky. I mean, a lot of people build her fast. You could build her tanky. That would probably work as this reviver with great speed, turn meter boosting, the AoE revive, great utility, amazing aura. She's still super relevant for basically all of the arenas. She's super relevant still. She's even good for Hydra and Doom Tower if you build her for that sort of stuff too. So yeah, Arbiter, I think she's still S tier for sure. I think people just get a bit burnt out on Arbiter because you get her. She might be your first Void legendary for a lot of people. Next up, then we've got Bellinor. I think Bellinor is B tier. AoE decreased defense and weaken, and AoE doesn't need any books for that either, which is nice. The rest of his skills are okay. He really shines in Demon Lord Clan Boss, where you can bring him in with his crit aura and his increased crit for your team on his A1, and then the decreased defense weaken, and he can help you build a really high damage team on quite a budget. That's sort of his best point. He falls off outside of that, but he's still an AoE decreased defense weaken. It's still useful, just not crazy. Then we've got Supreme Alhain and Ethos. Ooh, what a showdown, because Ethos, as you guys might know if you watched the channel before, is by far my most used champion on the account. I think he is, to be fair though, probably a B tier champion overall. He's got 2 AoE abilities. He does really good damage. He's brilliant for farming campaign, farming Minotaur, Doom Tower normal waves, all that sort of stuff. Brilliant for that, but he doesn't really excel in the end game anymore. He's sort of been, again, I say quite power crept by other champions. I actually think Supreme Alhain, for me, is going in the A tier. I think she's a noticeable chunk better than Ethos. In fact, I actually did the Supreme Alhain fusion. I booked her even and switched my Ethos gear over to her, and I use her now instead. She's as good as him, basically, at doing campaign and Minotaur, and she's much, much stronger in the arena than he is. Her passive is nice, and then she's got that A3 in particular. It's just fantastic for ripping teams apart. So, yeah, I think Supreme Alhain, for me, is A tier. I do. I think she's really good. Ooh, next up, an interesting faction again as well. We've got Cardial, Constantine, Sir Nicholas, a big faction, Supreme Aethel, it's not over yet, and Venus. We've got 5 Void Legendaries here for the Sacred Order. Very stacked fact. I think it's the most out of any faction, I think. We'll obviously see as we go through this video. Cardial, really no question for me. He's going in S tier, the best ally attack champion in the game. Full cleanse, revive on death as well that can't be removed. He's got great passive and tons of healing with his passive and his A1. Cardial is just amazing. Such a good champion. Constantine the Dayborn. This one is tricky, actually, to rank. So he's a good AoE damage dealer. He has a bit of block revive built in as well. So I was sort of bouncing between A and B. You know, as just a damage dealer, I feel like he's B tier, like a good, solid champion, but not the best of the best. The block revive maybe moves him up into A. I feel like it's a tough choice. I'm going to leave him in B for now, but I could see Constantine definitely going up into A. I do think he's a bit underrated. Solid damage dealer. He can hit very, very hard, and he does have the block revive stuff built in, which is nice. Sir Nicholas, I'm also putting in B tier. Again, the B tier champions, guys, these are solid champions. These are useful. I would say, you know, again, compared to the other affinities, B tier and Void is like equal to A tier in the other affinities. You know, they're good, solid champs. Sir Nicholas, he's a good, solid champ. Nice AoE shield for your team. Unkillable and healing for your team. He's a decent arena champion. He's a decent progression champion. Actually, extremely good progression champion. Not so good in the late game. He's decent. You know, I think he's B tier. Back in the day, he would have been A tier, maybe even S tier when I started playing. He's certainly not that anymore. Supreme Aethel. I'm going to be mean to Supreme Aethel. I'm going to put her in the C tier. She brings some crowd control. She does buff increased attack for herself, which I think is good. She's good for Doom Tower Wave. So I think she's quite niche, basically. C tier, I think she's probably C tier. Maybe B tier, because she does bring some nice self buffs at least. But she'd be an okay champion perhaps for live arena. Okay for Doom Tower Waves, but not doing much special. I think you're going to be pretty disappointed if she comes out of a Void Shard. And then Venus. Venus is definitely A tier for me. AoE decreased defense weaken, but unlike Bellinor, also brings in poisons on the A1, AoE HP burn on her A3 as well. So she's like a level above, and she also combos super well with Cupidus too and makes them a very powerful duo. She gets the full buff strip then too. So Venus is a great champion. Really, really strong. I'll put her in A tier. I think with Cupidus on the team, she's S tier. The two of them are probably S tier when they're together. But if they're not together, you can still totally run Venus. She's still very strong without him. Probably A tier overall. Barbarians to Hanorach. Turvold, one of my favorites. Spoiler, I like him a lot. Yakarl, Ursiga. And yeah, interesting setup right here. To Hanorach, I think to Hanorach has to go in the S tier probably. Maybe A tier. Probably S. I think to Hanorach is probably S. For so many PvE bosses in particular. She's even good for like spreading bombs and stuff in arena, which is quite fun. But amazing Hydra champion, amazing Doom Tower champion. Just almost everywhere. She's Doom Priest on steroids, right? Cleansing your team, healing your team with her passive, increase speed, increase defense, decrease attack, block buffs, spreading stuff. Yeah, she's a great champion. Really good. Turvold, I'm putting Turvold in A tier. I think Turvold is great, super underrated. I remember when they did the guaranteed void shard pulls for Turvold for 80 void shards. And everyone was saying, this sucks so much. I went and did it anyway. I was like, it's pretty good. And man, it's like the best 80 void shards I've ever spent. This guy is an absolute beast. He's fantastic. And he's super fun. Massive single target damage. He's even seen a resurgence with Nekret the Great pairing up with him in Arena as well. More so classic Arena to take down Marish Gataris. Because he hits so hard. And Harima counters them too because he just hits so hard. It doesn't matter about their passives. He still kills stuff, which is hilarious. Yeah, so Turvold, he's a beast. Very underrated. Ursiga, definitely A tier as well. Great damage protection for your team, helping them soak up that damage. Mostly an arena champion. Doesn't really see too much use outside of that, but she does a good job of being this big beefcake. Just protects your team, right? Keeps them alive. I'm also going to put Yakarl in A. I think this is going to probably shock some people. I think Yakarl is very underrated, and you get him for free in the clan shop. I think he's a great damage dealer. Number one, he does hit pretty hard. He's a good, solid damage dealer just on his own. Number two, if there are freezes out there, he actually starts to hit extremely hard. An extremely good damage dealer if there's freezes out, which is a bit more niche, a bit more rare. But number three, he's got brilliant utility as well because he's placing those freezes, and he's got the turn meter steal on his A2, which makes him strong in arena, of course, but also makes him really good for Fire Knight Hard, makes him brilliant for Dark Fae as well, for farming Dark Fae. He's great. He can lock down your team. He can decrease speed and turn meter steal the boss. Fantastic champion. I think Yakarl is very underrated, very slept on. He's not like the best endgame champion in the game. But out of the A tier, none of them are necessarily the best endgame champions. Maybe Venus would stand at the top of A tier so far, but yeah, you sort of get the gist, right? Gurgo and Grazur Irongut, the newest Void legendary in the game. Gurgo, I think Gurgo's B tier. He brings in, again, buff strip, AoE freeze. The buff strip is not the best one in the game, and it's not super meta at the moment. Like, he's just quite punished by polymorph. I guess so is Yakarl, but Yakarl at least is also bringing the damage and has the PvE uses. Gurgo's not bad for PvE, I suppose. He's good for Doom Tower waves and stuff like that. But I think Yakarl's a bit better overall, honestly, than Gurgo for that sort of purpose, mostly. Yeah, I feel like Gurgo is kind of a B tier champion. If Polymorph gets nerfed, I could see him jump up to A. He might get a bit more relevant again. Sort of like an AoE buff stripper. He's got some decent damage, you know? Not crazy useful right now. On the other hand, Grazur Irongut is going straight into S tier with buff extension for your team, AoE enemy max HP nuke on a 3-turn cooldown. That's the same move. AoE provoke with increased resistance and defense and shielding AoE on his A1. This guy he's just bananas. He's extremely, extremely good. Lizardmen up next. I actually had a video on him a couple of days ago, so go check it out if you want to see him in action. It's pretty crazy, honestly. Pretty crazy. It was my record for Nightmare Hydra, by the way. Next up, we have... no, not Coronar. You're not a lizard. The lizards. There's only 3. Yeah, Chigor, Krisk, and Ramantu. Ooh, this is a very interesting set. Chigor... I think Chigor is actually probably A tier. He's obviously a great wave control champion. The reason I put him into A tier, though, you know, that definitely wouldn't be enough. It'd be putting him in B or C. I do think he's very good for Sand Devil, right? With the sleep from his passive and his A1, right? I think he's a really good Sand Devil Necropolis champion, and that is becoming such an important thing to farm nowadays, right? To oil up all your gear. Not essential, but I think is good. I think it's enough to put him in A tier. I could see him moving down to B, though, to be fair. But like I think that's good enough. And he is good for Doom Tower waves too. Krisk, definitely S tier, goes up here. I mean, Grazur is definitely giving Krisk a big run for his money, but Krisk brings the buff extension, ally protection for your team, provoke as well, AoE attacks and all that fun stuff. A great passive. Krisk is just a brilliant progression champion and really, really good Hydra champion as well. Mischief tanking too in Hydra, so very strong. Ramantu. This is a difficult one to rank as well. Ramantu should be S tier. He should be S tier. But Polymorph kind of pushes him into A tier. So this is very difficult, right? Because Polymorph might get nerfed at some point, and people will be watching the video and going, man, he's clearly an S tier champion, right? The AoE buff strip with block passive skills. And then he can also put out AoE True Fears. He can push back cooldowns to A1. He's a great champion. But Polymorph really messes him up. Like, his A2 is almost guaranteed to Polymorph you. It's absolutely brutal. He puts out so many debuffs on the A2. He just gets Polymorph. He's great for waves as well, for Doom Tower waves and stuff like that. He can actually do good damage. I am going to put Ramantu in the S tier. I think maybe Polymorph is putting us off using him a bit more than it should. And I do think that he's ridiculously good as a champion. But yeah, the Polymorph meta is very bad for Ramantu, and it's quite frustrating because, honestly, his block passive skills is an answer to so many of the best champs in the game, like Taurus Marishka. You'd love to block their passive skills, but Marishka's just running, you know. People that have Marishka are often, you know, they got a lot of money. They're spending a lot of money on the game, and they like to buy a lot of souls as well. So, you know, they're running like a 5-star Marishka soul. Very frequently, I fought Marishkas in live arena. I'm not even that high in live arena. 5-star. I fought, I think, a 5-star Awakened Marishka in my last 5 battles in live arena. You're just going to get polymorph, so it's a problem. Right, next up, rant over. We could rant about live arena in another video. Coronar, Leorius the Proud, and Tumisia. Skinwalkers. Again, a faction that's really improved a lot recently. Some of these are a little bit old. Coronar, definitely, I think Coronar is B tier. He's got some cool AoE provoke stuff going on, which again is decent for Doom Tower, and it's very solid for Hydra, but it's certainly not the best of the best, but he has some use. Again, like these B tier champions, it's like, basically any of these B tiers, you pull them, and you're like, they might be game-changing for your account, or they might just sit in your vault, potentially. I think Coronar sort of fits in that mold, where he could be either. Leorius the Proud, I am going to put up into the S tier. I think Leorius is just incredibly good. He's got a brilliant passive. He's Ethos 2.0, basically, right? Ethos, but better. 2 AoEs. With his passive especially, he can hit really hard, keeps himself alive with passive on his active A2, right, as a passive. And then his passive, he's got passives for days. He hits extremely hard. I think he's very, very good. And Tumisia, I think probably goes into the A tier. AoE stun with HP burn. She can hit very hard as well. I think she's an A tier champ overall. Great wherever you need that AoE burn. So for Hydra, for Doom Tower stuff, very strong there. Used to be amazing for Spider. Probably not as good for Spider anymore with Hard Spider, but I think she's still probably an A tier champ. I could see her falling to B tier and stuff as more champions sort of power creeper in the game. I'll leave her in A for now, I think. Orcs up next. Angar. Uh-oh. Raka Viletide. Supreme Galek, or Gaelic, I don't know how to say it, and Warlord. Okay. Interesting set here. Angar, straight into C tier. One of the worst Void Legendaries in the game. Again, he's like, you get him early enough. He does bring good crowd control. He might help you a little bit in earlier game arena. He might help you a bit in Doom Tower and stuff like that. But he's just not that good as a champion. He's just not that good. And he does fall off pretty hard. So he's definitely C tier for me. Raka is going to go probably into A tier. Yeah, I think A tier for Raka. AoE Revive, AoE Cleanse with a shield and increased attack. I think Live Arena is where Raka is going to shine a bit, especially when we get into Gold Arena. And people can't just go like, oh, Duchess, Taurus Marishka, lol. When choices are more limited in Live Arena, I think that's where she's going to shine as a great tanky reviver. And she's great for Doom Tower. She's brilliant for Hydra. I ran her in Hydra. She's very impressive there too, in Nightmare Hydra. I think she's a solid reviver. Not on the level of like Thiefy and Arbiter and those, but only a small step behind, I think. Supreme Gaelic, this is a tough one, man. I'm probably going to put Supreme Gaelic in A, I think. AoE HP burn block buffs. Really nice skill set. Goes fast, explodes the burns. A tier, maybe? Maybe he's S tier, though. You know, he probably should be S tier, I think, but he probably won't be S+. I think Supreme Gaelic, probably S, maybe A. He's great for Hydra. He's probably very good for Ice Golem. I haven't seen anyone use him much for Ice Golem, but he can probably do very well in Ice Golem and in Sand Devil. But I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to leave him in A right now, because I know he's definitely great for Hydra. I think somewhat similar to Venus, or similar sort of level, you know? I'm going to leave him in A for now, but maybe he should be promoted up. Warlord, I will put Warlord in S. One of only 2 champions with like a properly good lockout in the game, and he's got the best lockout with his turning off your active skills, putting them on full cooldown. Absolutely insane. Does not get affected by polymorph. Goes through Stone Skin. So powerful right now. And then he's got good healing and shielding for your team as well. Warlord is just a really strong champion. No question. Demonspawn up next with Krutraxa and Anithwe. So although they're one of the strongest factions, quite a weak selection overall of Void Legendaries. I'd say Krutraxa is probably B tier. Really good single target damage. Very good. And she's got the whole extra turn thing. So Krutraxa can be great for you. Again, I think she's B tier. She could be really strong, where you might have better nukers, and she's not going to be quite as good. Mostly an arena champion, but not bad against bosses either. Like decent against Fire Knight hard, because she's got so many hits in her kit. Decent against Doom Tower bosses, again, because she just hits really hard single target. I think she's probably B tier overall. I could see her getting a bit of a buff and easily jumping up into A tier, though. Easily. Anithwe, I think Anithwe probably goes B tier as well. Anithwe, his damage isn't the best, but he blocks revive all over the place. So he's really seen a resurgence with Live Arena. Now he's super squishy. Very difficult to keep him alive, but if you get him in there and he blocks revive on someone, that can just win you that live arena match. Good for tag arena as well. Not really strong enough for the most part for classic arena. But yeah, Neathway, he's a good solid arena champion now. I think he's a good B tier champion. We've got Undead Hordes next. We've got Vlad, Eurost. I said them in the wrong order. Sifi, Little Miss. I'm saying them all in the wrong order. Little Miss Annie, and Nekret the Great. I think that's it. But yeah, whoa, another 5-stack faction with Void Legendaries and some very good ones here. What order do I have? Eurost. I think Eurost is probably a B tier champ overall. Maybe A tier. It's kind of weird. Euros sort of gets stuck in that I solo the Scarab boss build, and then you don't get to use him elsewhere. But I mean, he's a decent champion, right? He could be quite good for like Dragon and stuff like that. Definitely he excels in Doom Tower. Great against Magma Dragon. Great against Scarab boss. I use him for both of those. But I think he's a B tier, like a good solid champ, well worth building up for most people, but not strictly necessary. Like you could have better stuff perhaps. Vlad, ooh, this is a tough one too. Vlad has been buffed. Vlad has been buffed. He has double AoEs on a short cooldown with nice utility on them. I think he probably goes B tier. I think if you combo him and Constantine together, they both probably go up into A. So there is that combo worth knowing, Vlad and Constantine. I think Vlad is overall probably B. He's one of the better B tier champions though, for sure. He's got great utility, does good damage. I'll leave him in B for now, I think. Little Miss Annie, I'm going to put her in B as well. I know people don't like her. I even did not like her for a long time, but with Live Arena, that's where I've kind of got a new appreciation for this champion, even Tag Arena now as well. Because she provides increased attack on her A2, on herself, she can self-buff up. She hits still pretty hard in the A2. Very good against champions like, well, Duchess, who's putting out shields that enable that on her A1. And then she comes in and can just basically one-shot anyone in the game with her A3. So she's actually quite helpful for busting through those super tanky teams. And yeah, one of the best options for it. Sifi, okay, no question. S tier through and through. Increased defense with crazy base stats. Crazy boosting up your team as well. Block debuffs, increased defense, such powerful buffs, increased speed and turn meter. Really good revive for any attack-based damage dealers especially. Great combo with Rotos, which is broken. Brilliant passive, and her A1, ignoring resistance, is just busted as well for control. Nekret the Great also obviously going into S tier, no question there either. Completely busted, such a strong passive, such strong protection. He is kind of almost necessary to make a lot of these best nukers kind of do their best work. Like to get the most out of a Baron, you kind of need a Nekret the Great. That's one thing about Leorius and Taras especially, my goodness, is they can just destroy people with basically no protection. Like Taras in particular is just so dumb. Right, we've got Dark Elves next. Supreme Kale, Lydia, the Death Siren, Blind Seer, download number 10, it's Tremeria, and Mithrala Lifebane. Another 5 set of Void Legendaries. Oh, no, 6 on Physics. We've got our 6th set, the most Void Legendaries in the game. It's got to be Dark Elves with 6 taking the lead. And kind of a mixed bag, actually. A bit of a mixed bag. Supreme Kale still remains a question mark, doesn't he? He still remains a question mark of how good this champion is. Look, let's be honest. I think right now he still remains B tier, but he could easily jump up into A, perhaps even S tier, depending. He's got increased accuracy for your team and an irresistible decreased resistance. AoE on a 3-turn cooldown, and then he can extend that debuff as well. So he can just completely nullify all accuracy requirements for your team. Problem is, as of right now, not super useful in the game. Decent, good progression champion, good, kind of like the other B tier champs here. But endgame hasn't been super useful yet. So this one is like a question mark. I'm going to put him in B for now. I think he is B for now, but he could easily jump up multiple tiers depending on how the future goes. Lydia, I think Lydia still has to be an S tier champ overall. The decreased defense weaken with increased speed and strengthen is so strong. The block buffs, single target is even good. Her passive is great. Her aura is great. Brilliant in arena, even to counter like the Marishkas and stuff like that. Stopping revives and reviving your team too, or reviving her. Brilliant with Seer for a lot of content too. I think Lydia has to be S tier. Blind Seer, gonna go in the B tier because blind it starts with B. That's the no. She's in B tier again. She's not a great champion, honestly, but she does have an AoE revive. I think that makes her B tier overall. And she does, help your team stay alive a bit, but she's really power crept. Like Raka is just like Blind Seer, but way better, basically. It's a little painful, but there you go. Tremeria, I'm really not sure about this champion. I'm going to be honest. I don't really know. I haven't seen anyone use her. She seems pretty weak. I mean, she's got a full cleanse. That's nice. She's got an AoE stun, AoE decrease speed. Kind of wonky. Like AoE decrease speed says Hydra, but the AoE stun is useless in Hydra. None of them can be stunned as of right now, anyway. The AoE cleanse is decent there. Seems like an okay live arena champion. Maybe with some crowd control sets. I've not seen, like, is she probably B tier? Is she C tier? I don't know. I don't know. Just don't know. What do you guys think about this? I'm going to put her in B for now. And probably when the voids get ranked up, I'm probably going to leave her in B. It just seems kind of underwhelming. Maybe I'll put her in C. She just seems not great, but it's hard to judge, isn't it? Because there's just been no one. I don't think anyone has used her. Has anyone done a video on this champ? She just seems so uninteresting. Let's put her in C tier for now. Mithrala, definitely going in S tier for me. Insane passive gives her like infinite resistance, basically, turning her accuracy into bonus resistance. The AoE Hex is so useful. The cleanse with the big shield and strengthen, so good for keeping your team alive. The poisons on the A1. Just an amazing champ. I think she's brilliant for actual Demon Lord killable teams, though not super relevant there because you're kind of past that by the time you get her. Amazing for Hydra. Amazing for Arena, Doom Tower, just everywhere. Such a strong champion. Physics I like a lot. I think, to be fair, though, she is B tier. Good defensive base damage, AoE decrease speed with ally protection, AoE provoke. Very solid champion. So should see great use for you in Doom Tower and in Hydra, especially because you get her only 9 months into the game. Just guaranteed for logging on. So she's very easy to get, and you're probably still very much so progressing in Doom Tower hard and in Hydra. Probably, perhaps even Doom Tower normal progression for some of you, perhaps, by the time you get physics, and she's very helpful there. Dark Elf faction War 2, kind of crucial there. I think she's a really solid champ. Right, next up, we've got Fortis, Jorgid the Breaker, Hegemon, Solus. Oh, there's a lot here, and Whirlim, another stacked faction. The Knights, Revenant, lots of Void legendaries here, actually. Fortis, I think Fortis is C tier. Yeah, I think Fortis is C tier. He's a good, safe Nightmare campaign farmer. He's probably pretty decent for Doom Tower waves, but just underwhelming. He got buffed, but it's really clunky. Fortis, I think he's still C tier. I'd love to see another buff for Fortis, fix up his kit a little bit, make it a little less clunky, and he could jump up to like A tier damage dealer, defense based or something. But right now, not happening. Jorgid straight up into S tier. The biggest hitting, I mean, Baron is consistent with Skypiercer, but Jorgid can just pop off with extra turns. Just insane. Jorgid with a Necret is one of the most terrifying things you can run into. Like, he is just crazy good. So good. Hegemon, wow. Like, if Jorgid is like new meta, man, Hegemon is old meta. I think Hegemon is probably B tier. Let's be real. But back in the day, he was S tier, I would have said. But nowadays, I think he's probably B tier. He's just very frustrated by Polymorph is bad. Stone Skin, though, is so bad for Hegemon. Hegemon is guaranteed to go first. Stone Skin set completely counters him. Mostly an arena champion. He is definitely useful, but not crazy. I think he's decent. He is definitely usable. He could be good. You could build him to nuke. You could build him to crowd control. He is good. You're going to see some niche uses in like tag arena, maybe live arena, but not crazy. I feel like he's a B tier champ. And Solus is A tier definitely for me. Really good AoE defense damage dealer. Not on the level, of course, as Harima, but very, very strong. And he's got great utility as well. Like, I'd probably build him for Hydra. That AoE provoker and debuff extender, that does really good damage. He's very solid for that. Whirlim, Whirlim, I think, is probably C tier as well. Very niche, right? He's got some decent buffs and stuff, but you know, he's sort of like equal to B tier of regular legendaries. For voids, he's kind of a C tier. He's just, you know, not an exciting pull at all. Speaking of not an exciting pull, Acrisia, the worst void legendary in the game. I'm only joking. These are the two dwarves, Acrisia and Torment. Acrisia, obviously straight into S tier, no question. The biggest damaging PvE champion in the game. Basically, any boss, she is the #1 damage dealer by a mile. Like in Hydra, she's probably twice as good as Grisor, who's the next best. 3 times as good, probably, as like Husk and Royal Guard, that sort of stuff. Like, absurd. She does such crazy damage. She's insane. Acrisia is just next level. Tormund for me is A tier. He definitely falls off, obviously, later in the game. But he still remains a great pick for live arena, in particular against like those arbiter teams. Against a speed team in live arena, I've got both Torment and Hegemon. I find Torment to be much more useful because he brings more consistent damage, just consistent pressure throughout the fight. I like Torment a decent chunk actually for live arena and for tag arena too. I think he's still a solid champ, and he's also brilliant for Doom Tower, again bringing that consistent provoking, freezing. Yeah, very strong there. So I like Torment. I think he's an A tier. We've got the Shadowkin next. We've got Jinro the Stork. Very few champions have him. Jingwan, or very few players have him, I should say. Riho Bone Spear and Yumiko. Get a solid enough set here. Good mix, right? Jinro. I believe he is probably going to be C tier. We'll see when we get him. Very few people have. I certainly don't have him yet. I'll get him eventually, and we'll see. Defensive sort of damage dealer with good resistance. He can stun for 2 turns. Weird counterattack stuff going on. Like, maybe he'll be okay for live arena, but he seems certainly very niche. Certainly by the time you get him, he's going to be very, very niche. Jingwan. I think Jingwan is probably B tier these days. Like, he can extend debuffs. He's got a cool passive now, which is actually kind of useful, right? To counter crowd control for your team at the start of the fight. That's decent. I think he's probably B tier, kind of a niche champion. Not great, but not as useless as he once was. Riho. I think Riho is definitely A tier. Yeah, I think definitely A tier for Riho at the minimum. Great champion that's just got better as the game has gone on. Sand Devil's Fortress, she's actually fantastic for. So many debuffs to put on the Sand Devil. On her A2 is really good. The Cleanse is really good. But yeah, I think Riho is actually a champion whose stocks have risen, honestly, since they did the Guaranteed Void for her ages ago. I didn't do it, and I'm very sad I wasn't able to do it because, man, Riho is insane. Yumiko, really no question here, going up into S tier. Comboing Warlord and Prince Kaimar, basically. She's got a 3-turn cooldown increase for the enemy and a 3-turn cooldown decrease for you. AoE, brilliant. Hex that redirects stuff, turn meter steal, and basically built-in immunity set with her passive, which makes her very useful. So I think overall she's stronger than Warlord, though they're very similar, honestly. But yeah, Yumiko, very, very good. And then, finally, we've got Sylvan Watchers, the two of the newer Void legendaries. Not the newest, but the newer ones, Eilil and Clydna. I personally think Eilil is probably A tier. Yes, he does get frustrated very much so by polymorph. Obviously, a lot of these champions do. But I think he's got, and he doesn't hit crazy hard, but he hits hard enough for the most part to get the job done, and he has just such insane utility in his toolkit. So much turn meter, hitting through Stone Skin, giving himself Stone Skin, being tankier with his passive as well, stealing buffs. I think Eilil is actually very solid. I think he's A tier. I know a lot of people would say he's B tier, but I personally think he's A tier with that utility. And then finally, Clydna. Difficult one to rank this. So Clydna, clearly designed for the Sand Devil. I've yet to see anyone do anything useful with her for Sand Devil, though. I just don't know if it translates to something. Like, maybe it does, but I don't know. Yeah, I have really very big question marks about her. But at the same time, I'm like, man, if you pulled her early on, like, she does do a lot of healing. She brings Revive on Death and block debuffs and stuff. Like, she seems like a decent progression champion. I'm really conflicted about Clydna, to be honest. I don't like her, but maybe she's better than I think she is. I'm going to put her in B tier for now, and I think that's pretty fair. I definitely don't really want to get this champion. I'm very scared it's going to be the next Guaranteed Void. People were saying, man, Grisor Irongut, Guaranteed Void. I really don't think so, unfortunately. I think Grisor is just way too good. This is a champion, Grisor, that will sell Void Shards. People will buy that for like 10x. Grisor, you know people are buying shards like crazy for this champ, so... And he's more of a PvE champion, so you don't necessarily need multiple copies to empower and stuff like that. It doesn't make sense to me that they would do... I could be wrong, but it doesn't make sense to me that they do a guaranteed for him. I'm worried they're going to do a guaranteed for Clyde now, which upsets me, because I'm trying to save up for the next guaranteed. And I just... Anyway, look, I don't need to dump on Clyde's parade anymore. Here we go. How does this stuff look? Am I happy with this? The S tier... These are all looking like stonking good champions. Again, I think the ones that are a bit questionable, you know, Tuhanrak, maybe people would think she's A tier, but I think probably S tier people would agree on. And maybe Romantu, again, so cooked by polymorph. I could see Romantu arguably being A tier, but I like him in S. I think that's fair. The A tier, looking pretty solid. Again, really solid champions across the board. People might raise some eyebrows at maybe the Supreme Alhain or your Carl, but I think they do belong up there, probably. Yeah, the A tier, you can definitely see that they're still really good. Like, you've got some great champs in there, but they're not on the level of these S tier. B tier, we've got a really good chunk in B tier as well. Again, solid champions. You might have built a lot of these. They might be your favorite champion. Like I said, Ethos for me on my account, my most used champion by far. Now replaced by Supreme Alhain, but still extremely good. Like, just was a game changer for me for the longest time. It was huge for me in my account for ages and ages and ages. It's the first Void Legendary I got, to be fair, but man, I've used him more than all the others pretty much put together. He's great, but you know, again, I feel like he's B tier overall. B tier's good. C tier, a lot of question mark champions in C tier. I think that looks good. Nothing in the D tier. We ignored D tier today. I don't think that any of these champions are D tier. I don't. Yeah, I don't. I think they're very disappointing as Void Legendaries. Like, if I pulled an Angar, for me, Angar would be D tier. He's totally useless. He'd just go in the vault and be totally useless. It's just literally being like, oh, this champion is garbage. He is waiting for a buff in my vault. Totally useless. But I do understand. If you pulled him as a first legendary or something, you pull him early in your account, he could be very good with the provokes and stuff. He could be great for you and help you get really far. That's sort of how I feel about the C tier. They're pretty much all Vault Guardians, but maybe someday they'll get a buff. Maybe someday something will change. With Tremeria is the one I don't really know too much about. She could be better than I think. Yeah, we'll see. Look, there we go, guys. Let me know what you think, and I will see you for the ultimate tier list when we put everything together. Like I said, we're probably going to add an S+ tier, excuse me, and really be probably promoting most of the Void Legendaries up a tier when we combo them with the other affinities, just because they are generally better. And we'll probably, like I said, champions like Duchess and Kaimar and stuff like that will be joining, you know, the Yumikos and Acrisias and Taras Marishkas and of this world up in that S+ tier. Thank you for watching. I will see you all next time. Have a great rest of your weekend. Goodbye.